They loved each other until everything shattered. These are 3 real stories where love turned to hate and trust turned deadly. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. In a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Charlotte, North Carolina, the Jordan family had built a reputation rooted in unity, tradition, and resilience. Matriarch Denise Jordan, a retired school principal, held her family together with a quiet strength that resonated through every Sunday dinner, every family reunion, every whispered prayer over a plate of greens and cornbread. Her son, Malik, a 34-year-old EMT with a heart as wide as his shoulders, had always lived by the code: blood before betrayal. But no code, no principle, no legacy could prepare him for the unraveling storm that was about to descend upon them. Malik had spent the better part of his life putting others first. His job demanded it, his upbringing reinforced it, and when his younger cousin Jalen fell on hard times, Malik didn't hesitate to open his home and his wallet. Jalen had always been the free spirit of the family, charming, impulsive, always chasing something just out of reach. After a messy breakup and a job loss, he showed up at Malik's door with nothing but a duffel bag and an apologetic grin. Malik, ever the protector, took him in without question. At first, things were seamless. Jalen got back on his feet with Malik's help, taking on temp work and slowly finding rhythm in his days. Malik's girlfriend, Zaria, a marketing coordinator with a magnetic presence and sharp wit, welcomed Jalen into their shared space. To Malik, Zaria was everything, his future, his anchor. They'd been planning to buy a home together by year's end. There were talks of rings, of children, of forever. But forever, as Malik would come to learn, can dissolve in the blink of a lie. It began subtly, late-night conversations in the kitchen, inside jokes Malik wasn't a part of. Glances that lingered just a second too long. He ignored the signs at first, rationalizing them with trust. But as the weeks turned into months, the dynamic shifted. Malik started coming home to find Zaria and Jalen unusually quiet, their laughter dying as he entered the room. Phone screens flipped down with unnatural speed. His instincts screamed betrayal, but his heart pleaded for faith. Denise noticed the change in her son. The light in his eyes had dimmed. He spoke less at dinner, smiled less in photos. A mother always knows, even when the truth remains unspoken. Still, Malik remained silent, hoping that the storm brewing in his soul was just paranoia. Then came the night that would shatter everything. It was a Friday. Malik had traded shifts to surprise Zaria with dinner and a weekend getaway plan. He stopped at her job with flowers, only to learn she had called out sick. Confused but concerned, he drove home, only to find her car already in the driveway. Heart racing, he entered the house. The scene he found would be etched in his mind forever. Zaria, Jalen together, unclothed, unapologetic. The air left Malik's lungs like a punch to the chest. Every foundation he had built, trust, family, love, collapsed beneath his feet. There was no screaming, no violence, just silence. Cold, suffocating silence, the kind that speaks louder than any confession. Jalen offered no excuse. Zaria looked away, and Malik, shattered beyond words, left without a sound. The fallout was immediate. Malik cut off all contact with Zaria. She moved out within days, her key left on the counter beside a note that Malik never read. Jalen was disowned, not just by Malik but by the family as a whole. Denise, heartbroken, refused to speak her nephew's name. What had once been a proud lineage of closeness now bore the stain of betrayal. But betrayal does not end at heartbreak. It morphs. It metastasizes. Malik found himself unable to trust, unable to sleep, unable to look in a mirror without seeing the fool he believed he'd been. He buried himself in work, taking double shifts, isolating himself from friends, ignoring calls. Anger lived where love once bloomed. Zaria attempted to reach out months later, claiming regret, claiming it was a mistake born of confusion and proximity. The man Malik had once been, generous, open, full of belief in people, was gone. In his place stood someone colder, guarded, calculating. He trusted no one now, especially not those who smiled too easily. He learned to detect deceit in the smallest of gestures. Love had left him, and in its absence, hate filled the void. Still, Malik functioned. He moved forward. But he was changed. What began as an act of compassion toward a struggling cousin had ended in the deepest betrayal imaginable. And what once felt like a sanctuary, his home, his relationship, his family, now served as a reminder of how quickly devotion could turn into destruction. In the span of 6 months, Malik Jordan went from being the backbone of his family to its most haunted member. A man who had once lived by the words, "blood before betrayal," now knew that even blood can rot if left unchecked. And so began the first of 3 stories. Stories of love that turned into hate. Stories not born from fiction, but pulled from the deepest, darkest trenches of real life. In a suburban stretch of Houston, Texas, where families grew old on the same blocks they were born, the Owens family was known for their bond. Sunday barbecues, birthday parades, church gatherings, every memory was laced with the presence of the Owens sisters, Ayanna and Chantel. Ayanna, the older by 4 years, was quiet, disciplined, and deeply rooted in faith. Chantel, fiery and ambitious, had a flair for beauty and big dreams. Together, they were inseparable, a contrast of calm and chaos that complemented each other. But even the closest of bonds can conceal cracks, and not all betrayals wear masks. Ayanna had built her life on stability. A teacher at a local charter school, she poured her energy into her students, her community, and her family. Her boyfriend, Terrence, was a gentle-voiced electrician she had met at a fundraiser. Their love grew steadily, not quickly, and Ayanna saw in him the kind of man who would hold her hand through every storm. After 2 years together, they began talking seriously about marriage. Chantel, meanwhile, had recently returned to Houston after chasing modeling work in Atlanta. Life there hadn't been kind. Bad management, shady deals, and a trail of broken promises left her emotionally and financially drained. Ayanna welcomed her sister back with open arms. She offered her the guest room, a place to reset. The arrangement was meant to be temporary, but as weeks bled into months, boundaries began to blur. At first, the sisters rekindled their rhythm. Late-night talks, shared meals, memories reborn. Terrence, always respectful, made an effort to include Chantel in weekend plans. He saw her as part of the package. And Chantel? She smiled, she laughed, she thanked them. But beneath that smile was a bitterness Ayanna could not detect. A jealousy that had simmered for years, buried under childhood comparisons and maternal favoritism. Chantel had always resented being seen as the wild one, the unpredictable one, the disappointment. Watching Ayanna's life fall into place, her career, her stable love, her respectable name in the neighborhood, stung more than she admitted. Terrence, kind and solid, became the representation of everything Chantel felt she had lost. The betrayal unfolded like a silent infection. Ayanna began noticing small things. Terrence becoming more distant. Phone calls he wouldn't explain. Chantel disappearing for hours without explanation, returning with evasive eyes. The unease grew, but Ayanna, grounded in loyalty, dismissed it. She trusted them both. They were her foundation. Until the night she came home early from a school retreat. The house was too quiet. Terrence's car was in the driveway. Chantel's shoes were by the door. She moved through the home, heart pounding, dread blooming with every step. And there it was. Her sister. Her partner. A moment so vile, so unthinkable, it silenced Ayanna to the bone. They didn't see her at first. When they did, Terrence fumbled with excuses. Chantel looked defiant. No apologies, no remorse, just a shrug, as if the damage they'd done could be swept under a rug. Ayanna left the house without speaking. The next day, she changed the locks. She called her mother, she erased the photos, and she never looked back. Word spread fast through the community. The Owens family, once admired, became the subject of whispers. Neighbors exchanged glances instead of greetings. Church members tiptoed around the subject during service. But the damage wasn't just external. It tore through Ayanna's spirit like a wildfire. Her sense of trust, her belief in kinship, her confidence in love, all burned to ash. Terrence moved out of town shortly after. He tried once to explain himself in a letter, but Ayanna never opened it. She burned it, along with every trace of their relationship. Chantel left the city weeks later. No goodbye, no explanation, just vanished. Ayanna sank into herself. Her classroom became her refuge. She poured into her students with an intensity that masked her pain. Nights were spent alone, in silence, with only the echo of betrayal for company. Her mother pleaded with her to forgive, but Ayanna couldn't find it in her heart. She didn't want to. Years passed. Chantel remained a ghost. Terrence was never heard from again, and Ayanna, though stronger, never returned to the version of herself that once believed in forever. She built walls where there had once been doors. She smiled less, laughed cautiously, and avoided intimacy. The woman who once believed love conquered all now believed love was a weapon in the wrong hands. And betrayal. It didn't just come from strangers. It was most lethal when it came wrapped in familiar skin. The transformation was complete. From a sister who would have given her last dollar to the one who stole her future. From love to confusion to hate. This was the second story. A story of familial trust shattered. A story of envy hiding behind mascara and smiles. A story of two sisters, one who lost everything, and one who took it without blinking. In the heart of Baltimore, nestled between aging brownstones and overgrown yards, lived a woman named Tasha Moore. To her neighbors, she was the definition of a fighter, raising her son alone after her husband left, working 2 jobs, volunteering at the community center, and never letting her struggle define her. Her son, Darius, was her pride. From the moment he was born, Tasha poured every ounce of herself into making sure he had a better life than she ever did. She worked overtime to pay for private tutoring, scraped together savings for basketball camps, and clapped the loudest at every school awards ceremony. Darius repaid that faith tenfold. He stayed out of trouble, made the honor roll, and earned a scholarship to a state university. His dream was to become a physical therapist, and by 22, he was already interning at a rehabilitation clinic, saving money to rent his first apartment. Through it all, he remained devoted to his mother. Every weekend visit, every holiday dinner, every birthday phone call, he was there. The bond between them was unshakable, or so it seemed. Then came Jacoby, a smooth-talking entrepreneur with flashy cars, expensive clothes, and a trail of unanswered questions. Tasha met him at a pop-up market she volunteered at. He charmed her instantly. said he'd been watching her from across the booths, admiring how hard she worked. He praised her strength, her beauty, her sacrifice. No one had spoken to Tasha like that in years. She felt seen, and after so many lonely nights, she welcomed the attention. At first, Darius was happy to see his mother smile again, but he was cautious. Jacoby's stories didn't always add up. His businesses changed from week to week. He was always on his phone, always secretive. And when Darius asked simple questions, where he was from, what he did, Jacoby got defensive. Tasha brushed off the concern. She said Darius was being overprotective, that he didn't want her to move on. The tension grew. Darius, once his mother's best friend, now felt like an outsider in his own home. He began visiting less. Phone calls shortened. Holidays became strained. Tasha, blinded by new affection, dismissed it all. She had finally found someone who made her feel young again, who made her feel wanted. Then came the phone call that shattered the illusion. Late one evening, Darius received a call from one of his college friends, a law student who moonlighted as a legal assistant. She had recognized Jacoby's face in a case file, a fraud investigation, multiple identities, a string of elderly women defrauded of their savings, their homes, their peace. Darius's heart sank. He didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was there. Photos, bank accounts, testimonies. Darius confronted his mother immediately. He laid out everything, the names, the documents, the pattern. He pleaded with her to cut ties, to report Jacoby before it was too late. But Tasha didn't believe him, or rather she refused to. She called Darius jealous, accused him of trying to sabotage her happiness, said he was threatened by another man in her life. The words stung more than any betrayal could. For the first time in his life, Darius felt truly abandoned, not by a partner, not by a stranger, but by the one person who had always been in his corner. Weeks passed. Jacoby continued coming around. Tasha's demeanor changed. She was defensive, distant. The warmth she once had for her son vanished. Darius, devastated, filed a report with local authorities on his own. He gave them everything he had, but without Tasha's cooperation, it wasn't enough. Then, 3 months later, Tasha called him in tears. Her savings account emptied. Her house under foreclosure. Jacoby gone. Vanished without a trace. Her heartbreak was real, but Darius didn't rush to her side. The damage had already been done, not just to her finances but to their bond. Tasha begged for forgiveness. She said she had been lonely, that Jacoby made her feel alive again, that she never thought he would hurt her. But Darius, now hardened, couldn't forget how she had chosen a lie over her own son. He didn't yell, he didn't argue. He simply said he needed space. That space turned into silence. Tasha tried calling, texting, writing, but the warmth that once filled their relationship had turned cold. Trust, once broken at that depth, doesn't rebuild with apologies alone. Darius moved forward with his life, quietly and independently. He never stopped caring for his mother, but he no longer included her in his plans. Weddings, graduations, job promotions, she heard about them from others. Tasha remained in Baltimore, a woman now marked by regret. She tried rebuilding her community presence, volunteered more, donated what she could. But in every smile she gave to others, there was a shadow of the son she had lost. A betrayal not rooted in greed or malice, but in denial, in weakness, in the aching desire to feel loved, even if it meant ignoring the truth. And so ended the third transformation. A mother's love, once pure and immovable, corroded by loneliness and deception. A son's faith, once unshakable, turned to sorrow. A family severed not by hate, but by the slow erosion of trust. 3 stories, 3 betrayals, each unique, each painful, each real. Proof that love can be the seed of both beauty and destruction, and that the line between loyalty and betrayal is often thinner than we think. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.